Self-awareness is not some spiritual luxury meant only for monks or sages. It is the very foundation of human intelligence. Without awareness of yourself, your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions, you are simply a puppet of patterns. You speak, you act, you choose, but not from consciousness, from compulsion. And compulsion, no matter how decorate looks on the outside, is a form of enslavement. Freedom begins the moment you begin to observe yourself with clarity, without justification or condemnation. Many people think they know themselves, but what they actually know are their memories, their names, their roles, and their opinions. These are only surface elements, they are not you, they are what you've gathered. To be truly self-aware means to observe without filters, to see the movement of your mind without becoming entangled in it. It is to recognize when anger arises, not after you've shouted, but the moment it begins, when it's still a flicker. That's awareness. It gives you space between stimulus and response, and in that space your power resides. People often try to control their lives, their work, their relationships, their situations, but they are not even in command of their own inner chemistry. A single word from someone can disturb their peace for hours. Why? Because they have not yet created distance between themselves and the content of their mind. Awareness is that distance. It is the space where clarity arises and compulsive reaction dies. With awareness, you can choose your action. Without it, you are merely reacting like a machine with buttons anyone can press. The beauty of awareness is that it transforms without effort. You do not have to fight your habits. You just have to become deeply conscious of them. The moment you fully see a pattern, with all its consequences, it begins to lose its grip. It is like turning on a light in a dark room. You don't have to chase the darkness out, it disappears naturally. Similarly, when awareness illuminates the workings of your mind, transformation happens organically, not forcefully. True power is not in control, it is in conscious presence. When you are aware, you don't need to dominate anything. You are simply available to reality as it is, without resistance, without distortion. And from that state, your actions become graceful, precise and impactful. This is not weakness, this is not passivity. This is immense strength, the kind that doesn't scream, doesn't shake, but remains unmoved in the midst of chaos. That kind of power cannot be borrowed or bought, it can only arise from within through awareness. Through awareness. People speak of great journeys, climbing mountains, crossing continents, diving deep into oceans. They measure the worth of their lives by the places they've been, the sights they've seen and the adventures they've collected. But rarely do they speak of the most profound and transformative journey a human being can take, the journey within. The inner journey begins when you become curious not about the world, but about your own nature. What is this mind that never stops talking? What is this emotion that rises like a wave and crashes like thunder? What is this breath that flows without your permission? These are not philosophical questions. They are direct portals into the truth of your existence. Yet, most people never pause long enough to ask them. They are too busy chasing the surface while the depths remain untouched. You can travel the world and still feel empty. You can gain every possession, every title, and still not know who you are. This is because fulfillment does not lie in accumulation but in realization. The experience, but only the inner world can offer essence. And that essence is not hidden from you. It is just buried under layers of noise, identity, opinion and unprocessed memory. To journey inward is to remove these layers one by one, like peeling an onion, until what remains is raw, real and radiant. The beauty of this inward path is that it demands nothing but your attention. You don't need fancy tools, complicated rituals, or someone else's validation. You only need a sincere willingness to sit with yourself, not with the goal to fix or judge, but simply to observe. In that observation, a different intelligence awakens. Not the intelligence of facts and logic, but the intelligence of presence, of being. This intelligence does not scream, it whispers. And if you are quiet enough, you can hear it guiding you. Those who walk this path often seem different. not because they speak in riddles or look mysterious, but because they are not easily shaken. Their center is not found in the shifting winds of opinion, but in the stillness of being. They have traveled not to the ends of the earth, but to the very root of who they are. And in doing so, they discover that peace is not a destination. It is a state that arises when you are finally at home with yourself. Most people believe concentration is something you must force, a skill you must acquire through effort and discipline. But concentration is not about trying harder. It is not about squeezing your mind into one pointed focus. True concentration is not something you do, it is something that happens. It arises naturally when the inner clutter begins to settle. When there is stillness within, the mind does not wander. It simply rests in the present. In that restfulness, concentration flowers by itself. You cannot expect a turbulent mind to be focused. Trying to concentrate in such a state is like trying to see clearly through muddy water. The more you stir it, the worse it becomes. But if you allow the turbulence to subside, if you simply sit without resistance, the mud settles and the water becomes clear. Similarly, if you cultivate inner stillness through awareness, breath, or simple presence, the mind aligns on its own. Focus is not something you impose, it is a byproduct of clarity. We live in a time of overwhelming stimulation. Notifications, voices, screens, all competing for our attention. In this storm, people complain they can't concentrate. But the problem is not a lack of mental strength, it is a lack of space. The mind is too full, too busy, too entangled. To concentrate in such a state is not just difficult, it is unnatural. But if you step back, if you create moments of silence in your day, if you disconnect from external chatter, you will find that the mind starts breathing again. And when the mind breathes, it focuses effortlessly. You may have noticed in moments of deep calm, watching a sunset, walking alone in nature, or simply breathing in silence. The mind doesn't run wild, it rests. It becomes alert yet relaxed. This is the perfect ground for concentration. When the body is at ease, the breath steady, and emotions quiet, the mind knows exactly where to go. It does not jump from thought to thought, it moves with grace. In such a state, whether you're reading a book, building a craft, or simply observing life, you are absorbed. That absorption is concentration in its purest form. So instead of striving to focus harder, strive to settle deeper. Concentration will follow. Stillness is not the absence of activity, it is the absence of distraction. When you learn to carry stillness within you, even in the midst of action, concentration becomes your natural state. It becomes who you are, not something you switch on, but something that simply radiates from your presence. And in that kind of presence, the smallest actions become profound and the simplest moments become sacred. Most human beings today are constantly connected to the world. Not in a meaningful or conscious way, but in a compulsive and chaotic manner. From the moment we wake up, our senses are hijacked by screens, messages, opinions, images, and endless streams of noise. We are not just living in the world, we are drowning in it. We check on others' lives before we check on our own breath. This obsession with external happenings creates a disconnection from the most fundamental aspect of life, the self. This distraction is not accidental, it is engineered. Everything around you is designed to pull your attention outward, to sell you something, influence you, provoke you, or manipulate how you feel. So, you are constantly reacting to someone's success, someone's comment, someone's lifestyle. In this reactive mode, there is no space for reflection. There is no room to simply sit with yourself and ask, "What am I doing with this precious life?" Instead, you run on autopilot, chasing the next dopamine hit, the next notification, the next approval. In such a state, your life becomes a reflection of what the world wants from you, not what your inner being longs for. You are like a mirror that reflects everything it sees but knows nothing of its own surface. You start making choices not because they are true to your essence, but because they look good on the surface, acceptable, popular, desirable. Slowly, this leads to anxiety, confusion, and a deep sense of dissatisfaction. Why? Because you've built a life based on the noise of others, not on the stillness within. There was a time when silence was part of human existence. People would walk without earbuds, sit without screens, eat without distraction. In those moments, something beautiful would happen, a natural awareness, a gentle inward gaze. Today, silence is feared, solitude is avoided, and being alone with your own mind feels uncomfortable. But this is not because the mind is evil. It's because it is unfamiliar. It's because it is unfamiliar. You've spent years knowing the world, but minutes knowing yourself. Until you recognize this trap, this distraction of the world, your energy will remain scattered. Like a leaking vessel, your life force gets drained, not because you lack potential, but because you lack direction. The more you are entangled with what others are doing, the more you abandon the responsibility of your own being. To awaken from this unconscious engagement, you must first realize just how far you wandered from yourself. Human attention is not just a passive thing, it is power. Wherever you direct your attention, your life force, your energy follows. This is not theory, this is your everyday experience. If you constantly think about a problem, your whole system becomes entangled in it. Your emotions, your body, even your breath. If you think about someone with anger or envy, your energy is no longer yours. It is now moving in their direction. Feel